Yeah. Now, I know obviously there's 7+ billion people on the planet now. I'm not exactly sure what's that. Is it
7
like
billion, yeah.
7.2 now, I think?
I think so, yeah.
But in America, we only have
60 million people.
360 million people. I personally feel like even though we can make regulations and stuff, how much if America were to completely change would really help the globe because we're such a small part of the world. We have China, who I know, and what city is it? Is it Shanghai? It's like you've seen
Shanghai,
pictures of
Hong
just
Kong, Beijing, they all have huge populations.
just
Yeah.
smog and stuff, like it would have to be a global effort beyond just America, even if we were to change from we were go Elon all the way and you know
Well, we're the difference between America and every other country on this earth is we're the pioneers. We influence so much of media and culture with our music and movies that if you go to a country, they have a lot of their own too. They never get to America like you would. Like you'd be surprised, but we do have the largest media presence in an art form. So like in that sense, with a lot of what we do, it is a catalyst for other countries to follow. Now,
mhm,
now the issue right now with India and with China, because they aren't a first world country. That's not, they're classified kind of like they're not third world, but they're developing, and they're kind of that in between. But they believe that they're polluting insane amounts. I mean, more than us, but it is because that they believe that to get to a first world country, because we polluted so much to get to where we are, they believe they should be able to do the same till they get here. And so the fossil fuels being burned out by India, by China is just something that they right now don't really care about because they are just trying to become a world power as well. And
yeah.
see us as hypocrites for trying to stop them from doing that, even though that's how we got here.
So what would be the better option as opposed to fossil fuels? I mean, I've heard electric cars and things might be a better option or a better route, but I've also heard that that causes just as much pollutants, is it solar energy, wind energy? Like what is the proper way to go to have less emissions in the atmosphere?
Well, no, I mean, definitely switching from high greenhouse gas emitting sources would change immensely. Like coal, there's no such thing as clean coal. Get that straight. Coal is coal. There is no clean coal. Um,
Say that, thank God.
they don't, it's not perfect. Nothing, we don't have anything that's perfect. But for us to switch, that's what the, pro oil, pro gas people are saying. They're like, well, electric isn't perfect, so why would we make the switch? Or like, they have this issue, but as a whole, it's better. But it's not perfect. It's not a perfect system. The battery system is with them with lithium and everything. I don't know what actually kind of battery Tesla uses, but it's still it's still toxic if it's not disposed of properly. And
Mhm.
that's kind of like they use that as like it's just like it's another fallacy because all they use is different types of fallacies, and so it's just a diversion tactic practically.
Mhm. So for our listeners that might not be as scientifically inclined, obviously you've always known a lot more about science, but I understand some things
Hmm.
in science. When you say greenhouse gases, what exactly are these emissions doing? Is it has to
The
do with
greenhouse effect. Is
our
that what you're
atmospheres, right? Like our ozone layer?
Yeah, so the greenhouse effect. So I mean, this is so greenhouse effect. We have a bunch of gases up above the Earth. It's so, and that makes up our atmospheres. That makes up troposphere. Or well, I guess we're in the troposphere, but anything above that, I don't really remember which ones were. But then ozone's at the top, and so ozone is just it's three oxygen molecules, blah, blah, blah. And so when the sun shoots down ultraviolet radiation and infrared radiation
Mhm.
and some gamma rays. But so ozone is really good at deflecting ultraviolet rays. And so if we didn't have the ozone layer, we would burn up and die. Have you seen the one, I think it's Terminator movie. And something happens and like the sun pierces through the atmosphere and it just starts melting everything. All
No,
right, never mind.
Oh
All right, you
no.
guys haven't seen that.
sorry, guy.
That sounds like a scary movie though, dude.
It was on, yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. I watched it a long time ago. But and so, some UV radiation gets in, some infrared radiation gets in, and and so infrared kind of gets absorbed into our atmosphere. That keeps our planet the temperature it is. So we don't freeze up if we didn't have the sun, because like we wouldn't be able to live without the sun. And so ultraviolet radiation can either be absorbed or it'll bounce off of Earth's, planet off surface. Like, so there's albedo effect and stuff like that. That's what it's called. And so when ultraviolet radiation bounces off Earth's surface, it bounces back as infrared radiation. And so that will either bounce back and leave the atmosphere again, or it'll get absorbed, or it'll bounce off greenhouse gases and stay again in the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So the more greenhouse gases that we have, because the ultraviolet radiation, I don't believe is affected as much as the greenhouse gases or even at all. But I know infrared radiation is.
Mm-hmm. So this infrared radiation, are you saying it's getting through the atmosphere when it should be reflected back away, and this is causing the planet to warm up?
No, what it does is it's keeping more of the infrared radiation inside the Earth more than it should, instead of it getting expelled into the atmosphere.
And it's more staying in here due to the amount of greenhouse gases we have in the atmosphere. Yes. And that we're putting out in the atmosphere.
And so that gets absorbed, and that's what's causing the raise in temperatures.
Okay.
And so carbon,
what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, like, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. Chlorofluorocarbon, CFCs, which are greenhouse gas, and that's also what destroys ozone, because that was what made the hole in the ozone layer when we used to use that in hairsprays, and I think it was in refrigerant coolants back in the day, like the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, so that, and we didn't produce a lot of CFCs, but the thing that made that so deadly is to the ozone is because the chlorine molecules in the chlorofluorocarbon are super reactive, because chlorine is a highly electronegative element. It's always looking to react with something. So it pop one of the oxygen molecules off of an ozone, because think of it like, if you guys remember like chemistry, it'd be like 3 oxygens, and then one would have a single bond, and then one would have a double bond. And so that one with a single bond would be looking to be bonded to something else. Do you guys remember like the octet rule and stuff, how it had to have like 8 electrons? No,
but right. I mean, you're doing a pretty good job explaining it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
high school.
Well, so oxygen, it needs two bonds. It needs to bond to at least 2 things.
Okay.
And so chlorine would come in and bond to that oxygen and pull that oxygen off of the ozone. And so then that ozone would form oxygen gas, O2, for the 2 oxygen molecules in left. So then you'll have a chlorine molecule attached to an oxygen molecule. And then chlorine would then attach, because that oxygen again doesn't have that second bond, it's still going to be very reactive and look for another oxygen molecule. And then so it kind of just keeps going through that cycle of grabbing oxygen molecules and pulling it off of ozone. And so I think one chlorine atom can like destroy thousands of molecules of ozone.
So it's slowly, you're saying, shredding the oxygen of the ozone layer, making it smaller, essentially, is what.
Yeah, so that's why there's that hole, because we did not have CFCs for very long, and for the damage that it did is insane. Like, so that ozone layer is over the Arctic, and it moves around because it'll move over Australia, and there's like certain months in Australia where like you either have to cover every single part of your skin because you'll get like instant 3-degree sunburns.
Does that have to tie into the Australian fires that were earlier this year, or is that just fire?
No, that just had to do with like droughts and stuff like that.
Gotcha. I was just wondering if that had a correlation. I don't know if you might know the answer, but or the environmental community, if you learned it. Let's say we lowered our greenhouse emissions to a level that obviously isn't perfect. How long would it take the atmosphere to rebuild what we've taken from it? Would it take hundreds of years? Would it be something?
Oh, so for like to build back up the ozone layer?
Yes.
I don't actually know that statistic. I do know that it has been doing pretty well lately. I don't know. There's still a hole, believe me, but I know it's not getting bigger as of now. I don't know that answer to that one.
Gotcha. I wasn't sure if that's something that they even know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like how long they would predict it.
Yes. Well, so that's just the CFCs, and we banned those in the 80s. I want to say 80s, maybe. And so there's a bunch of other greenhouse gases. Methane is a huge one, and that's the big one from agriculture, from cows and stuff like that.